All right, everybody, welcome to the Off and Turn One podcast, an All-Star 15 TV production. We're here. I'm Gary, your host. The other host, Mike, and then we've got AJ here tonight. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, yeah, we had quite a bit this weekend. So,
That's a whole conversation we're going to be having here.
oh yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about that tonight. It was a good weekend, honestly. I was late for the Cup race, missed the first few laps. I did see Daniel Suarez's fire. That looked pretty intense there, and just kind of the story of his season. But we'll get into that. But AJ, thanks again for letting us crash your channel here, and we'll get this thing underway here, guys. So we have got. Let's go ahead and go back to Friday night. And let's talk about the Xfinity race, where I thought the start of the race was very interesting. We thought Austin Hill was going to be on the front row, then he wasn't on the front row. It was kind of a last minute thing. I guess according to NASCAR Race Control, they made some unapproved adjustments on that 21 car. And from the sound of it, it sounded like the 21 team didn't mind starting in the back anyway. And then chaos unfolded going into turn 3 on lap number 1 that collected Austin Hill.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks to Jeremy Clements, a little bit of a stack up, and then Clements got set down to the apron, basically.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, it was just a chain of events there, and then the 35 got scared and spun out the 21. So that was I think everybody in our Discord that was watching that race kind of they were losing their minds pretty good. And they were like, look at that karma, yet all this and that about Austin Hill. So that was enjoyable, but I did enjoy the winner of the race. Justin Allgaier swept both the stages, not a surprise. Junior Motorsports has been pretty fast at these plate tracks here as of late. It seems like between Junior and RCR, they're pretty quick there. So I thought Jesse Love was kind of a wrecking ball all night. It seemed like he was taking out the field one car at a time, one bad push at a time. There were a couple of times where he he put some guys in some rough spots there. I know Anthony Alfredo's one for sure.
Brandon Jones, I think, was the other one.
Brandon Jones was another one that caused one of the big ones there in the Xfinity race. Um,
Well, Jesse Love got his karma though, because he's involved in that big one going into turn one with about 10 laps to go,
yeah,
something like
about
that.
10 to go. Yeah, he gave another bad push, and that was enough to get him involved. So, what do you guys think of the Xfinity race overall?
I thought it was very intriguing. The super speedway package that they use, how the cars they can just block at will and go both sides of the street like DW used to say. I mean, that stuff's exciting to watch. But I thought overall, for the most part, the racing was pretty interesting. A lot of times, it seemed like the energy in the pack would take a little bit to come back up to like what normally energy is. But I thought overall it was great. Kind of sucks for SVG at the end there when he got caught up in that last big one with about 5 laps to go.
Yeah,
And then, we can talk about the controversial caution or no caution call, whatever way you want to look at it with AJ Allmendinger on that last lap, because I heard both sides of that argument.
yeah, we'll talk about that. AJ, what do you think of the race overall? Right. Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah. Just after the repave there, they did have tandem for a little bit, and then when they got back to pack racing, yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for the last couple of years since the next gen car was introduced. Like, just take the Xfinity car and give them 900. I mean, that's literally all NASCAR has to do to fix most of their issues. But we won't talk about that right now. We'll talk about that when we get into the cup portion of the podcast here. Almost said broadcast. I mean, we are broadcasted, but no, I like the race. I thought it was very good. Um, what's that? Uh-oh.
That better, everybody? Can y'all hear me now, though? Okay. When I switched it over to mine because you were using it, it didn't recognize
Oh, the microphone. Yeah,
the
yeah. It
microphone
took us
change.
like five. It took us like 5 minutes last week to figure that out.
But it's okay. I'm not
But
the host, so you don't have to hear me often.
that's right.
But
That's
no, back to what I was
right.
saying. I very much enjoyed the Xfinity race, a little bit more than the
Mhm.
Cup race. Um, it made me very much enjoy racing 10 or 15 years ago. It's like, hey, it's like
Yeah.
we're watching that again. And
Hmm.
and
Sure.
it was very fun to just kick back and watch a very competitive super speedway race.
Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't really have the chaos like we're accustomed to. Like it was a pretty calm and tame Daytona race, which was a breath of fresh air for me. That's why I'm saying it's a good race, because of the non-wrecks. I thought everybody did a pretty good job, and everybody was giving a lot of each other a lot of respect out there, which doesn't happen very much in NASCAR these days. Everybody was giving each other room if they got loose or whatever. And if somebody did wreck, hey, it was only a one car incident. But I think that also shows Daytona is starting to age. It's getting its bumps back. It's getting its character back. So it's going to be it's starting to get to that point where handling, especially in the summer race, is starting to play more and more of a factor throughout the years. So I thought it was a great race. Really solid show that they put on. um, but let's talk about the OT. Ryan Truex wins the race, which I thought he was probably going to win anyway. If
Yeah, I
not, it
agree.
was probably going to be Parker Kligerman. I thought it was either going to be I thought it was going to be either the 20 or the 48 personally. Um, Honestly, I think NASCAR made the right call. And here's why I tell you NASCAR made the right call, because they are consistent with this. All right. If you go back and look at the Daytona 500, we had a car, two cars probably spinning through the grass, coming to the white flag. They took the white flag and they threw the caution. They've already taken the white flag in the Xfinity race last night. They threw the caution. So I get it. He was kind of, by the time Allmendinger was coming back up mid pack, you know, for the most part, everybody was out of the way. But as soon as he hit the wall, the door foam came out. So it's kind of one of those things where you
Yeah,
don't know
once that
what could
happens,
be.
it's all
Yeah, you just got to
yellow.
throw the yellow there. They made the right choice. I know there were still 3, 4, 5 cars trying to get past, so I thought they made the right move there and throwing the caution there. I know that's not a popular opinion. I know people aren't going to be too crazy about what I'm saying, but I think ultimately NASCAR made the right decision throwing the caution there. Love me or hate me for it. I think it was a good move. What do you guys think?
I
Well,
think it's
I
the
was
only move.
there we go, AJ. My thing is it was probably was the right call, but the argument can be made that there was only 3 or 4 cars to get by. And yes, I get the foam argument, the being debris on the racetrack at that time. But you think about it, the next time they come through there, they're going to be slowed down the pace. Checker flag would have been flown, and they still had, you know, it seemed like from the replay that NBC or USA showed, most of the cars got by him without hitting him. So, and I think he was starting to roll again. So it's like he wasn't going to be sitting there when they came back around. But I would say that they did make the call, and I like how you said that. Referencing the Daytona 500, that they're being consistent. But
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out that argument for the people who were like, "Oh, they shouldn't have thrown it."
At least it wasn't Ryan Priest at Indianapolis where the dude sat there for a minute and then they threw the yellow. Okay.
I'm so
All
salty about
right.
that.
Or at least it wasn't like Pocono last year again with Ryan Priest, who spun off a two and he sat there, couldn't get going because of his flat tires. And then they threw the yellow as they were going through the tunnel turn. So I will give the Xfinity Series race control team some credit here. They threw the caution at the right time. They threw it right away, as they should have. And I'd rather that happen than be in a situation where something could happen, whether they were coming to one to go or after the checkered and somebody hitting some debris. Because yeah, even though they are slowing down, they're still going like 140 mile an hour probably at that point, right? So if they go through there and somebody cuts a tire, it's a bad day. Everybody's wrecking. It's like sending them down there when it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
So I mean, I'd rather them play it safe than sorry. I think NASCAR is also being a little bit sheepish because of what happened there back in 22. where they sent them there 200-mile-an-hour going into turn 1 and it's pouring down rain. So I think that has made these guys kind of think of how, okay, we need to be a little bit quicker on the button when it comes to throwing the caution out at these super speedways, just in general. I don't care if it's Daytona, Talladega, or whatever. I thought they made the right decision there with that. So, Cup race. Excuse me. Daniel Suarez on fire. That was a unique fire. It looked like they kind of had it put out, and then Denny Hamlin came into the pits, and then it erupted again with his backfire.
Yep.
So, honestly, I'll just say this, and I was saying this last night too. Outside of his Atlanta win, that's kind of been the story of Daniel Suarez's career since he won at Sonoma back in 22. I mean, the last year and a half for him, that's kind of been the story of his seasons, so to speak. Where just a bunch of weird stuff would happen to that 99 car.
Yeah, crap end of the stick.
Yeah, I mean, he's had similar luck to, and I know this is a really controversial figure in NASCAR. He's kind of had similar luck to Bubba Wallace. I won't even lie. I mean, him and Bubba have kind of been in the same boat as far as the luck they've had as of late. So, it's just one of those things where the 99 has shown speed. He can't avoid a wreck. The crew messes up. Same thing with, the 23 where he'd be in position, have a really fast car, can't avoid a wreck late, pit crew messes up. It's kind of been one of those things. For those two cars, I feel like they're very, very similar as far as they've got good crews, like behind the scenes, they got good engineers, they got good crew chiefs, but it seems like they're
missing something.
They're missing something, yeah. And I don't feel like that they're far off. I think Suarez, if he plays his cards right, yeah, a lot of it is luck. I mean, if Suarez plays his cards right, he could probably win, and get into the top. I think their ceiling is still the top 8, the round of 8.
Yeah.
Honestly, Bubba hasn't ran bad at Darlington. And if you kind of, as we're looking ahead a little bit for the Cup Series next week,
he's a top
going
12.
into Darlington. Bubba's like 17 out, 21 out right now.
No. I mean, at Darlington, he runs top 12, top 15.
Oh, no, he does. Well, I was just getting ready to say RFK and 2311 were the cars to beat. All 4 of those cars were the cars to beat there at Darlington in the spring. So if any of those guys, I mean, you can pick the 6 or the 17, or you can pick the 23 and the 45, and I don't think you can go wrong this week. Those 4 cars seem to be pretty good. And of course, you got your typical suspects like Denny Hamlin's always good at Darlington. Doesn't matter the generation of car.
Not
doesn't
if he
matter
has
what
those engine
series.
problems.
Well, yeah. TRD's had a few issues with those, and or tearing down engines when you're not supposed to. But we'll talk about that later. I've got that in my notes here. But looking ahead, I could see one of those 2311 guys being pretty quick. But Josh Berry won stage 1. Not really a surprise. He's been pretty quick at Daytona, Talladega this year, so not too big of a shock to see him up front. I think he's definitely been more aggressive than Harvick ever was when it comes to Daytona and Talladega, because the last few years you never really saw him up front, except maybe Talladega in the fall last year.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the only time I saw Harvick really be aggressive up front the entire day.
Yeah, where Josh Berry, you saw him kind of doing that last night. It was just refreshing to see the 4 car up front. But good to see that. Logano won stage 2, pretty uneventful stage 2.
We had the big one on lap 61 in that stage. That on the back straightaway.
That took out
we'll talk about that.
Drivers.
Yeah, Larson, LaJoy, Noah, they kind of got together there, stage 2. I know Chase got collected in it, but it seemed like Larson was just kind of being Ricky Stenhouse last night. Can I say that? I know like Larson's the best driver in the Cup Series right now, but Larson just kind of pulled a Ricky. It was just like, I'm going to give everybody bad bumps until they get out of my way. And then it kind of backfired on him when he got into the 10, and then the 10 got into the 7.
Yep.
It looked like last week at Michigan, but in reverse. And I thought the 7 car was still going to get caught up in the air and flip over, but he did. Talk about that wreck on the backstretch there on lap 61. What's y'all's thoughts on that one? But to me, it looked like just a racing deal. Everybody's kind of being aggressive there at that point in the race.
Well, I thought Steve Letarte on the broadcast mentioned something pretty interesting because a lot of those guys at the time, that was the first time of the entire night, because the first stage they didn't save fuel at all, and first stage was incredible because they were being aggressive 3 wide the entire stage, which is fantastic.
Well, that's because they could make it to the stage because they set the stage at lap 35.
Yes.
And personally, here's what I think. And we'll sorry to cut you off, but let me just mention this. I think they need to make the stages short at the plate races. Get stages 1 and 2 out of the way by lap 60, lap 65, and let these guys race. I think if you do that, you get first stage done in 30 laps. You get the second stage done in 30, 35 laps. I think that's perfect because these guys don't have to save fuel. And then you want to have them do a fuel mileage race at the end, let it be a fuel mileage race at the end. But because I think regardless whether you're saving fuel or not, there's still going to be a wreck in stage 3 that's going to change your strategy anyhow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I think that's something that I'm assuming NASCAR will look at in the offseason of stage lengths at some of these races. Hopefully they would. That'd be nice. But my thing is what Steve Letarte was mentioning on the podcast with that, not the podcast, the broadcast with that race. A lot of those guys, that was about the time of the run they were saving fuel. And, there's a big checkup that was going to happen with some guys, and it seemed like at that point of the stage 2, you had guys saving fuel, and then you had other guys that were like, nope, I'm done riding single file here. It's like, we're going to the front. So I think it was just a combination of people saving fuel, people not saving fuel.
Kind of met in the middle of the pack there.
Yeah. And then, Larson just gave LaJoy a bad bump. And then when he gave LaJoy a bad bump, he hit Noah Gragson in the right rear corner panel, and that's all she wrote.
And for once, I can't say it was Corey LaJoy's fault. So
Well,
I
if you
kind of have to agree with him this time.
Well, if you're Denny Hamlin on Twitter, you just say it's Corey LaJoy's fault because that's what he did like half hour after he wrecked.
Yeah. I think that's just Denny just trying to be Denny, but
Probably.
what do you think, AJ? You kind of saw the highlights today. I know you kind of watched the race last night, but had to rewatch it. So
Yeah. That wreck it just kept going. Like the first three got together, and then the rest just, oh, there's more. Oh God, there's more. And all the way down towards turn 3, I think you ended up with like 15 or 16 cars in it.
yes, 10, 15, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And I was just expecting those 3 or 4, and then everybody checks up, somebody gets into the back end of another one, and they all go flying.
Yep.
Yeah, so they survived that wreck, and then we're into stage 3. Stage 3 is pretty clean, for the most part.
Still 9 to go.
They had a big wreck with 9 to go.
That was after the wreck with
But
John Hunter.
Before that, we
Nemechek.
had a wreck with Josh Berry.
No, John Hunter.
John Hunter?
Yeah, John Hunter. That's the one that set up all the chaos because the 2 big wrecks came after that yellow. Because that yellow with John Hunter.
Yeah. It all started with John Hunter being an eight. No, just kidding. I don't think it was his fault. I think he got a bad bump. But then after that, chaos kind of ensued. You had Josh Berry flipping down the backstretch at Daytona.
Yep. Not surprising. There's no grass. I heard that I heard that argument like last night. I was like, oh my God.
If there was grass, he would have been able to flip back over on all fours. Okay. I'll just say that up front.
Or he would have cartwheeled even more.
Or he would have taken a tumble like Ryan Preece last year. Yeah, hard telling. I get it where drivers are coming from when they say they'd rather flip than hit the wall. Especially, I'll take Denny's word for it, because he's driven this Gen 7 car. I'll have to believe Denny when he says I'd rather flip in this car than hit a wall. The thing of it is with Barry's incident, he was upside down and he hit a wall.
Yep.
And I get it. These guys have like 8 safety point harnesses in their car now, so they're pretty locked in. But at the same time, there's still a little bit of wiggle there where you're not quite all the way in your seat when you're coming towards that wall. So one of those things where, I hope obviously Josh Berry's all right. I think he came out of the care center and interviewed afterwards, but
he got out of the car and gave everybody a thumbs up.
Yeah. I just think it's one of those things where he's probably sore Monday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But when he wakes up Monday, he'll be sore. But I don't think it's going to be anything where he's going to miss any time or anything like that. Um, it's just one of those things where, he was flipping upside down and hit the fence. That's just part of the Daytona package, unfortunately. And unfortunately,
I
part of this next gen car.
Yeah,
Um,
that thing took off way too easily. And if you saw Austin Cindric's car, that thing about took off itself too. And
yeah,
that wreck.
yeah. Austin got lucky. Josh Berry did not. That's basically what it come down to. Personally, I think it's part of this flat bottom car because if you look at last night, okay, if you look at Friday night rather with the Xfinity race, nobody flipped,
Nope.
not a single car.
And
I think it was one of those things with Kyle's flip at Michigan. It was a fluke because his roof flaps never deployed.
and he
Like
was also
I know they were having high winds there at Michigan that weekend, but
he was also getting pushed by Chandler Smith too, and that's the thing
the
that
flaps didn't deploy at all.
yeah.
I think that's the big thing to keep that car on the ground. But I think a lot of it is the big spoilers, the big wickers they got on these cars now, the big lips that they got with these spoilers. I looked at it this way, and one of my friends was telling me this. It's bad, and the spoiler is too big on a car when the spoiler is clear. Okay, for the top part of the spoiler. The spoiler is too big if it's clear. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. I do think that NASCAR needs to look at, maybe cut the spoiler off a little bit, not making this a flat bottom car, and go test it.
Yeah.
Go test it.
Don't just.
I think we need to get rid of this ground effect stuff. It works in IndyCar. It works in Formula One. It works in IMSA. But all of those, what all those have in common? They're all road racing series. None of them are running on ovals. None of them are running at the speeds that NASCAR runs on these ovals. Take out the ground effects, take off the diffuser, and just let them have to rely on the car and the spoilers for their downforce, not what's underneath the car.
Well, and I think too that shark fin that they added midweek, and they're like, oh yeah, we took it to the R&D center and it's gonna work, and it's like, well, two examples last night, that shark fin didn't do crap.
Well, and I was talking with Joe about it last night, and there's possibility where it created more lift and more than anything else. You look at McDowell's wreck; it was 2012-esque with Tony Stewart.
Oh yeah,
very much so. I mean, it was one of those things where I don't care what generation of car. I don't care if it's Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 4, Gen 2, Gen 1. I don't care.
He was going airborne.
He was going to go airborne in that wreck. We've seen that a million times in the Xfinity series and the Truck series in the past. He was getting halfway turned over. I mean, that's just one of those things. But that wreck late there, with McDowell, I mean,
that was insane.
And AJ, I think you'll probably agree with me on this wreck. He said it was really unnecessary. McDowell did. It's just one of those things where I think by the time Cindric got to his bumper, he was already out of the gas, and you see the flames coming out of the car.
Yeah.
There wasn't much Cindric could do. I think McDowell just kind of put a bad block on him.
Yeah, and Joey had the worst view of that because McDowell ended up on Joey.
Yeah. yeah.
Well, sure. And McDowell was lucky enough too. That car came down before it hit the top of the safer barrier and hit the fence. But I mean, I think it even broke when he landed. He broke the C post in Alex Bowman's back end because that entire back end just like broke when he landed on him.
Yeah, he broke off the deck lid and everything. Surprised Bowman was able to actually go back out there and be somewhat competitive in the draft there for that run to the checkers. I don't know if he ended up finishing or not, but the fact that he was still in the main pack after that is a testament of this car and what NASCAR wants. They wanted to get the Cup Series more durable cars. Again, I think there's a way to do that, but it's not with the way that this car is designed. It's just my opinion. Take it for what you will. So end of the race. Let's talk about the last couple laps. We'll talk about Jeff Burton almost punching the lights out of Lee Diffie in excitement. But I thought the finish was nice. I mean, they didn't wreck.
Yep.
Nobody got killed. Nobody flipped over. We didn't have a Ryan Newman situation on our hands.
It could have turned into
in
that
a car to the
quickly.
head. We didn't have none of that. What'd you guys think of the end of the Cup race? I thought it was an exciting finish.
I thought it was pretty exciting, and I give Kyle Busch a lot of preps for not just flat out just saying "see ya" to
I
that
was
kid.
expecting that.
Well,
If it was Kyle Busch 2014
or 2008, 2009 Kyle Busch,
yeah, Harrison
Harrison.
Burton wouldn't have finished that race. Okay,
No.
he would have been halfway turned over and on fire. It would have been like Tony Stewart, Kyle Busch as 2009 at Daytona.
That's exactly what I was going to reference because I wonder. I don't think that's going to be in Kyle Busch's mind at the time, but I could see him afterwards thinking like, yeah, if I did that, I would have done the same move that that would have been the same move Tony did on me in 09. Like, I'm not going to just go out there and flat wreck somebody.
However, though, the track was a lot more worn out then, and I think it was a combination of Tony got him loose, and Kyle needed to correct the car, and where Tony placed his car coming to the checkered, he placed it right there. He wasn't moving his car. Kyle needed a little extra room to save it, but Tony wasn't going to let him save it. I think it was just one of those things in
And I know
that wreck. So I think those wrecks are a little different.
He definitely
Personally,
he
I don't
definitely
think
tagged
Harrison
him.
Burton blocked
did.
down to the bottom line or to block below the line. I think he had a little bit of an assistance from Kyle Busch there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to Parker Retzlaff for giving the push of the year. That team has only like 2 employees. The fact that they were even in the top 5 in that restart and they still finished 7th. And the car came home in one piece. I think that's a big deal for that 62 car.
I heard I was hearing an interesting interview. I think it was this afternoon. Kim Burton was being interviewed, and Kim, like, the Kim Cam, the famous Kim Cam everybody loves. But she was doing an interview this afternoon, and she like shut her eyes like the entire like last lap, and she was just listening to Harrison Burton's spotter, and she was just like, I was just waiting to hear that Harrison was upside down in the air, and I was like, yeah, if Kyle Busch did turn Harrison, he was probably gonna go up in the air.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, 100th win for the Wood brothers.
That was good
Big
though.
deal.
Yes.
I wish they would have just told Jeff right after the checkered, like, get out of here. No need to have you interview your son in the car. Although that was a pretty cool moment.
That was.
But the fact that NBC was understanding of like, yeah, your son just won his first Cup race. Yeah, you can go ahead and leave. But no, I thought that was a really cool moment, seeing the Wood brothers get their 100th win, and I know Harrison's been working his tail off to get into victory lane.
He also needs a ride for next year.
He also needs a ride for next year. I think this does increase his stock, by the way.
I do too.
I think there's a couple of teams that he could go to potentially. One of them is Spire. And I was saying this last night. I can't remember if AJ was with us or not. I don't think he was. But I mentioned, I think there's one more thing that Rick Ware Racing needs to do to really solidify their lineups as far as crew and driver. If they had a full-time dedicated driver to that 15 car, I think they could really make some noise next year. So I was thinking Harrison Burton could go to Rick Ware. It'd be kind of a homecoming for Jeff Burton because he drove for Roush for a lot of years. Rick Ware Racing's campus, easy for me to say, is on site at Roush Fenway, Keselowski. Still in the Ford family, so he wouldn't be changing manufacturers or anything like that. But he would be right there. Still in the Ford camp and running some Roush equipment, which I think has kind of been better than what Penske has been providing to the Wood brothers last handful of years.
Yeah.
Really since Ryan Blaney, because Ryan Blaney was a Penske development driver through and through, and they gave every shot for him. And I think Ryan's a great driver, don't get me wrong, but I think Penske was making sure, hey, before he actually fields a third car for Penske, we're going to use this 21 car to make sure that they get a win or two. But it was cool to see Harrison Burton get the 100th win for the Wood brothers. They had over 1,000 entries, 71 years of racing, 7 different decades, 47th driver to win for the Wood brothers as well, by the way.
That's cool.
So I saw those stats last night, and I thought those were very interesting. And you guys know me, I'm a stats guy. So
yeah, There's stat hole.
So, but I thought the race overall was really good. I think I saw on Jeff Gluck's poll as of this morning, it was at like his good race poll.
Yep.
91% of people said it was a good race at that time this morning when I voted yes.
I thought I thought it was one of the best super speedway races this year, just from start to finish. And I'm going to say this right now. Shout out Lee Diffie. That man came prepared. He knew what was going on. He knew the significance of last night, and his call with Steve Letarte, Jeff Burton from start to finish was incredible all night.
Yeah. Oh, and
incredible.
This is the part.
I mean, for him, not. Go ahead, AJ. Sorry.
No, I was to say this is the part where we give the microphone to Gary, and he goes on the rant for all the Lee Diffie hate.
Yeah. So I will say for Lee Diffie, this is his first Cup race since 2017 at Michigan, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, because
I didn't think it was that long.
He called the Kyle Larson win when Larson won 3 in a row at Michigan.
Yep.
That was his last race that he did for the Cup Series. Lee Diffie is just a constant professional. Like when he does IMSA, he knows what the hell he's talking about. When he does IndyCar, he definitely knows what he's talking about because he's been covering IndyCar for the last 10 or so years. He was really the guy that replaced Bob Jenkins. So he knows what he's doing. And when he comes into NASCAR, he knows what he's doing. I think overall, Lee Diffie is just a motorsports fan, and you can kind of tell. He knows when to get excited and knows when to kind of curb that a little bit, which is why I think he's 100 times better than Rick Allen. This is no shade to Rick Allen. I like Rick Allen. But I feel like Rick Allen tries to force the moment and make things more exciting than what they are.
Yep.
And I think Lee does a good job of just letting the racing doing the talking, which is what you need in TV.
Kind of like Alan Bestwick.
Yeah, kind of like Alan, where you don't need to be talking the whole time. And that's why sometimes I really don't have the NBC broadcast up because when Rick Allen's been doing it, because it's like with him and Burton and Letarte, and they're all just talking all the time. And I'm just like, shut up.
Or they're
watch the race.
There was a good thing on Rick Allen. I saw it was after last year's Talladega race in the fall. They had a comparison of Alan Bestwick in like 2014 and how that finish played out versus Rick Allen. And Rick Allen was talking like every like 5 seconds. And it's like, Rick, it's like, you don't need to talk every 5 seconds. Just let the pictures tell the story. And if something happens, jump in.
Yeah, go to radio if you want to do that.
And that's right. And that's where I've appreciated Alan Bestwick, Mike Joy. Hell, I can't believe I'm saying this guy's name because I can't really stand him. Bill Weber. Okay. I appreciate Bill Weber a little bit because he wouldn't talk the whole damn time.
Oh, gosh.
Or even Ralph Shaheen when he would call NASCAR races. Like those guys, they're just kind of old school guys. They're fans first in a way, where they're just up there watching the race. And I thought there were a couple times where I thought Jeff was kind of overstepping a little bit, where he could have just kind of like backed off a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, it was also kind of late-ish in the race. I think you saw that Harrison was running really good. So it's one of those things where it's like, do you really tell Jeff Burton to can it, or do you just let it happen?
Yeah.
But I thought for the most part, the booth had really good chemistry for them not being together in 5-6 years.
Yep.
7 years. So I thought it was really good. I will say, I'm so sick of our NASCAR fans.
Oh, here we go.
Here's the rant. Okay?
Here we go.
Where's my popcorn?
I get it. Lee Diffie is not an American, obviously.
Oh,
right?
Right. Oh, I know. I saw this on Twitter last night.
Okay, I get it. He's Australian. All right. He's Australian first. It's obvious. You can tell in his accent. All right. But he's an American citizen. He's a blood red freaking motorsports fan through and through. Like, the man knows what he's talking about, and he's very passionate. Now, I can appreciate that. And he knows when to kind of curb it, like I said earlier, and he knows when to, turn it up. He's called many great races. Well, the last couple of Indy 500s have been really good.
24
IndyCar
hours
races,
Daytona.
Yeah, 24 hours of Daytona has been really good the last few years. Even going back to his Fox days, he's done some Formula One stuff. He was really good with Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
This guy just knows motorsports and knows what it takes to bring on a motorsport broadcast. There's not a whole lot of guys that can do that. I will say to our NASCAR fans, shame on you. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. Because y'all are sitting here hating on Lee Diffie because of his accent. Let me remind you that Jackie Stewart back in the 80s called NASCAR races, and y'all didn't bitch about Jackie Stewart then, or at least there wasn't, social media where we could see it.
Yeah.
Back then. I think Lee Diffie's great. NASCAR fans don't deserve him. I think he shouldn't be calling NASCAR races anymore. Y'all want Rick Allen's back so damn bad, where he's sitting here yelling and screaming over Jeff Burton the whole damn time. Let's just bring him back. How about that?
No, I only need him on Saturdays. I don't need him both days anymore. I'm sorry.
I don't want him.
I saw that thread on Twitter about people complaining about Lee last night. And I just shook my head. And I'm like, last night was the perfect example of like, this is what one of the missing pieces to this booth. Because you think about it, over the next 12 weeks, 10 weeks, you're going to see Lee Diffie do the playoffs and the chemistry get better and better and better. And I saw a lot of people I know there was a lot of people bashing him last night, but I also saw a lot of people giving him rave reviews, especially with this energy, because it's a missing piece.
The IndyCar guys that were in Portland, the IndyCar broadcasters, were watching this NASCAR race last night because they missed Lee so much.
Yeah.
Lee just knows what the hell he's doing. Really, and this is what I was saying to the guys during the race last night. He's got to call 24 Hours of Daytona. He's called the Indianapolis 500 a couple times now. The only thing that he's missing on his resume now, I know he called an oval race. He's called Bike Week at Daytona. He called the Daytona 200 for the bikes back in the day when they were on speed. The only thing that he's really missing from his resume now is calling the Daytona 500.
I can argue the Brickyard 400 too. That'd be the next thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
He's gonna get another crown jewel next week.
He's getting another crown jewel next week. He's calling the Southern 500. Yep. And I know it's not considered a crown jewel, but he's calling the Bristol night race.
And Talladega in the fall, which will be great.
In the fall. And that's always kind of been a big marquee event in NASCAR. But the only thing that's missing on his resume now is the Daytona 500. Now, people are going to say Brickyard. Okay. All right, Mike, Brickyard. But I'm sorry, the Indy 500 will always be bigger than the Brickyard 400.
Can I throw in the Coke 600? Does that help?
I mean, he hasn't called that either. What I would love to see
have to go to Fox for that.
I know. We're just
actually he'd have to go to Prime for that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's gonna be on Prime next year.
Go to Prime.
That's a good point.
Fox Sports is gonna have the Indianapolis 500. They gave up the Coke 600 for the Indy 500. Now I don't know what the broadcasting scene is gonna look like here in a few months. I don't know. We're gonna have so many changes done.
Yep.
But I personally believe that Lee should be calling NASCAR races.
I agree.
He's good at it. What I love for him to stay in IndyCar, the IndyCar fan of me would say, yes, absolutely, we'll take him because obviously NASCAR fans don't want him. But, and I'm not talking about you two because I know you guys like Lee Diffie, but I'm just saying, like, for the majority of like the 70% of his haters, have him call IndyCar. So, but my thing is, like, he did a great job. He was awesome. He was professional. He was non-biased, and he wasn't yelling the whole damn time. I didn't have a headache while I was watching an NASCAR race. It was great. Because I feel like, and this is no disrespect to Rick Allen, but I feel like Rick Allen makes everybody yell.
Yeah, over him.
Because if you think about it, Jeff Burton didn't really like get loud last night.
Yep,
he was pretty calm, like most of the race. Like Lee kind of set the tone. He was pretty calm. Steve Letarte was pretty calm. Like Jeff Burton didn't get riled up, and Junior didn't really get riled up because he wasn't there. But I think the 3-man booth is going to work. Ideally, what I would like to see for NASCAR moving forward, okay, you got the 12 races on Fox. Keep Mike Joy up there as long as he wants it. He can have it. I mean, I know he's kind of probably lost a step or two in identifying cars and wrecks and, getting to the calls of things. And he might have lost a little bit of his excitement over the years. But I think he's also gotten smart about it where he spreads it out for the right time. Completely polar opposite of Rick Allen, where he's just excited all the time. I think you roll with that 3-man booth that you got there at Fox. You got to keep it rolling. When we get to the prime TNT portion of the schedule, I know I've been saying no Alan Bestwick, no Alan Bestwick. It's a repeat, yada 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 yada. However, I would be okay with Alan Bestwick coming back to the booth for Prime and TNT. I'd be okay with that. I'd like to see what he could do with Junior. But here's my but. I think you should put Adam Alexander in for those 10 weeks. I think he'd be phenomenal.
I love Double A.
I think he's great. And he called great truck races today. He called the Xfinity races really well.
If he doesn't get the CW deal, then I could see him going there.
Yeah, yeah. So I like Double A there for that 10-week stretch, and then have Lee Diffie there in the NBC portion of the schedule. I think this could open the door for Jamie McMurray to start calling NASCAR races because we have 3 different broadcast partners. Where Jamie has kind of gotten the shaft the last couple of times for calling Cup races, I think this could open a door of opportunity for him. I don't know who you would have as a crew chief analyst for NBC, assuming Letarte, because I think Letarte has already announced that he's going to Prime and TNT. So you're going to have Letarte and Dale Jr. There's been a report where Jr. is trying to recruit Letarte to go to TNT.
Yeah, I don't think it's confirmed, but it's heavily rumored.
Yeah,
I mean,
heavily
NBC
rumored.
had Jimmy Johnson on the cast last night.
And
he was all right, but
he's not something that I care for, to be honest. And
I thought he was kind of boring at times.
Granted, I am a Jimmy Johnson hater. I have always been a hater. So just don't take my points seriously.
I
think NBC's just trying to fish for people.
Yeah, I honestly I would like to see him outside of the Peacock pit box. Like if we tried to put him in the booth in some capacity. But then again, that's your 4-man booth, and I don't like that. So I think he's kind of stuck on the pit box with Dale Jarrett, which I'm okay with, by the way.
Can I say one thing? Where's Kyle Petty been this entire year?
Well, it's the 75th anniversary of the Petty family in NASCAR. Plus, I'm not saying Richard is completely bad out of shape, okay? But I think he has been taking a little more time with his dad because Richard is 80 something, 87, okay. 85.
That makes sense.
I think he's kind of been taking a little bit more of a caretaker role for Richard. That's what happens when you get old. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of why he's been taking a back seat between the 75-year anniversary of Petty's and racing and with his dad's condition. I think he's kind of just more of been doing that. But I would love to see Kyle Petty come back.
I think
I'll hire him in the booth at NBC next year. I'd be okay with that.
I think he is supposed to be back for the playoffs because I know a month or two ago when he was on the morning drive with Mike and Pete, he said he'd be back in September, October.
Yeah.
Where's Dougherty?
Which I think his contract ran out.
Oh, did it? I thought he was just the playoff guy when he just come out for the playoffs.
Oh, I mean, he was out there for Chicago.
Oh, that's right.
He's kind of a part-timer. I don't think he's really full-time.
I think him and Kyle Petty now are just mostly they're just there for the playoffs to help with DJ and Marty.
Yeah. That sounds about right. But I will say, having Lee Diffie in your booth for NBC is a strong move.
Oh yeah.
And then having Jamie McMurray. I would like to see this. I don't think it'll happen, but Chackenhouse as your crew chief analyst, I think would be a good move. He's called some Xfinity races before, and I thought he did a great job, personally.
That was Fox, right?
Yep.
For Fox, yep. I thought he's done a great job, and he did a great job on Race Hub. Or you could get a guy maybe like Drew Blickensturfer, who we don't know what he's doing at the end of the year, kind of thing. Drew Blickensturfer, TV booth. I think it would work. Again, he's been one of those guys where he's done some Xfinity stuff and Race Hub stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd be really good at it. Or Jason Ratcliffe. I don't know. Jason Ratcliffe always had a really good interview. When he would get interviewed between Xfinity and Cup when he was a crew chief.
Since we're talking about broadcast booth, what's the Fox IndyCar booth going to look like?
So I know Hinch and Townsend have made it known that they want to be a part of the Fox broadcast in some capacity. Um, Not sure what's going to happen with that. I've heard Kevin Lee has also expressed interest of going to Fox as the head play-by-play guy, which wouldn't be his first time calling play-by-play for Fox. He's done it for IMSA before, and he did it for ARCA in like 2015 and 16.
Yep.
After Steve Burns passed away and after Rick Allen left to go to NBC. And he was okay at it. I mean, it was his first time doing play-by-play, but I thought he did a pretty decent job at it.
I did too.
I think for IndyCar, he's done a pretty decent job given the circumstances. I think these next few weeks are his tryout, no doubt, for sure.
I was going to agree with you on that. This is tryout.
But I think he's a better pit reporter at this point, in my opinion. I think he's been great doing pit road, but I don't know. Be interesting to see.
Did you guys see what happened to Lane Riggs at the end of the truck race?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to the truck race.
We'll get to that. We'll talk about that for sure.
You want to go to the IndyCar?
I've never seen somebody do that.
Yeah, neither have I. Well, I did have some other news and notes to hit on.
All right, go ahead.
Before we go to the truck race and IndyCar race today. Zane Smith and Trackhouse parting ways. No surprise.
Can I say something?
Sure.
He's going to I bet he's going to go to that third entry for front row. That's my thinking.
So he was on loan to Spire, right?
I'd love that.
Yeah.
As a Trackhouse driver.
Yep.
You know, I'm getting ready to say. You probably already know.
What's that?
7 car.
Really?
Zane Smith is a 7 car. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. I'd say
Wouldn't
either that.
surprise me.
I'd say that or the front row opportunity because there's that.
Yeah. Whatever deal Zane Smith takes, I think Harrison Burton takes the other one.
Okay, I agree. I could see that.
Like whichever deal is on the table for Zane Smith, Harrison Burton will take the other. So that'll be interesting here in the next few weeks to see how that all unfolds. Trackhouse expanded to 3 cars, so obviously it's official now. They got one of the Stewart Haas charters in order to do this. So they're going to expand to 3 Cup cars. They've got SVG in the 88, and then the other 2 drivers are staying the same with Ross and with Daniel Suarez. This kind of needed to happen. I know SVG isn't quite ready to do oval racing for stock cars yet, but this needed to happen. The reason for the pick of the 88 was when he raced for Red Bull, whenever they would run the Bathurst 1000 and the V8 supercars. One of the cars that he drove was the 888, and he won the Bathurst 1000 and the 888. So
shout out Dale Jr. for allowing him to take the number.
Dale Jr. ain't got nothing to do with this.
I know. I'm just saying.
What does Kyle Petty got to do with this? I'm just kidding. TRD messing up this week. They realized that they messed up. 8 weeks, well, 4 months afterwards, 5 months afterwards, however long it was, to tell NASCAR, hey, we messed up. Penalize the 11 car. What do you think of that?
Smart on their end that they told NASCAR instead of NASCAR finding out on their own.
Yep.
That's
what
smart.
do you guys think? How do you think that'll affect Hamlin in the playoffs? What do you guys think about it? Talk about it.
Since he lost 10 points and with 1 race remaining to try to get more points, he would have had a decent amount of advantage for bonus points in the playoffs, but
so he had 15 playoff points before that because he won 3 races. So it's 5 points per win, right?
Yep.
I don't know how many stages he's won this year, so he might have had like 18 or 20 playoff points. So he's losing half, and he's got potential to lose more because he lost regular season points to take him out of the contention for the regular season title.
He's gonna have a hard if he makes the round of 8. He's gonna have a hard time now in the round of 8 with points. That's my thinking. And also talking about the engine issue with that. That's David Wilson came out and said, "Oh, that's our bad. That's my bad." And I know David Wilson's like retiring at the end of the year. I'm like, that's another not good look for TRD and David Wilson.
Yeah. Anytime that you can screw over Hamlin, I'm going to be happy about. So I think it's great.
So, is there any conspiracy that there was something intentional in that engine that they didn't want NASCAR to find?
I don't think so. I think it was really legitimately one of those things where NASCAR needed to inspect the engine. I'm gonna agree with Jeff Burton on this, and it's not very often I agree with Jeff Burton as a commentator these days. I think it was one of those things where NASCAR needed to inspect the engine. There was a miscommunication between TRD and NASCAR, and TRD already tore the engine down to go seal it for another race without NASCAR inspecting it. I with TRD providing all the engines for the Toyota cars. Let's think about it. It's not like Chevrolet where they have one engine or where they have a couple different engine suppliers. It's not like, well, it's kind of similar to Ford, with Roush. Roush Yates, they supply all the engines for the Ford teams. If there's another engine supplier that I think Toyota were other than Toyota to make this mistake, I think it'd be Roush Yates. But it'd be the Ford camp. It's just one of those things where you're providing all the engines for all the Toyota cars. I know there's not a lot of them. There's 8 of them, right? Or 6?
Yeah.
8 of them.
8. Yeah, there's 8.
8 of them. Occasionally a 9th car whenever 2311 has a 3rd car out there. Or even a 10th car when they have Jimmy Johnson out there. I almost said Junior Johnson. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Probably rolled over in his grave because I said he drives a Toyota. Anyways, TRD, I think this could affect him. I think, like y'all said, once he gets to round of 8, it's gonna be tough. One of those things. Just gotta adapt and overcome. And I sent my buddy a text. You know how they had at the beginning of the year, they had the A and the 11. It said in, like for all in.
Yeah.
I said to one of my buddies the other day, he went from all in to all out. All out of playoff points. But I think it's just one of those things where it's unfortunate for Denny. He didn't do nothing wrong. He just drives the car. But he's the one getting affected. So
yeah.
AJ, do your mind go to the all-in thing that you and I were probably thinking about at the same time?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a thing for another podcast.
Nerds.
It's a thing for another podcast another day.
Has Ryan talked to you about that yet?
He has, and we can discuss that off the air.
All right.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Let it happen. Battle at Berlin. Anyways, we're not going to talk about that. That's a whole nother subject
Sure, it
for
was
another
Bash
time.
at Berlin. Battle of Berlin was World War II, pal.
Oh, damn.
Got me good there. I don't know anything. Remember, I'm a novice at wrestling. Anyways, you want to talk about IndyCar or you want to talk about truck race? Which one do you want to talk about?
I was going to say, since AJ brought up the truck race, bring it up.
Yeah, might as well just do all NASCAR at one shot and then go over to IndyCar.
Stage 1, Ty Dillon. Stage 2, Christian Eckes, race winner Lane Riggs, and he decided to dislocate his shoulder in victory lane. Talk about it.
Well,
How?
I want to know. Yeah, I agree with AJ. How he's dislocated his shoulder. That's a question we're gonna need to find out.
This is funny because we just brought up wrestling. Sami Zayn dislocated his shoulder and tore his rotator cuff on his way to the ring when he used to do to the crowd when he hits the ring steps.
Oh yeah.
He was facing John Cena that match.
That's right.
It wasn't even. It was before the match even happened. So I've seen it before. I was just, he gets on top of the car and he's like, oh no.
I thought the race.
I will say the crew did pop back in for him from what I saw and from what I heard.
There you
go. He's probably going to get checked out tomorrow. So they popped it in back enough for him to be able to make the trip home. But when they get home, he's going straight to a doctor.
I would hope
to
so.
get that checked.
That or a chiropractor.
But luckily for the truck series, they're off for the next couple of weeks. They're off for Darlington. They're off for Atlanta. Their next race, I think, isn't until Bristol. Yep. So,
but good for
they got the next 2 or 3 races off. So
good for Lane Riggs though. I mean, he's been fighting all season long to try to get a win, and good for him. I thought the racing overall was okay. Wasn't the greatest.
I thought we saw something in Milwaukee that we hadn't seen in a long time. multiple lanes.
There
Like,
were multiple times where I thought somebody was getting stuffed in the turn 2 wall. Holy
yes,
cow! I
there
think I
were a
was
couple times with that. I mean, that was the first time that we've seen, like, because if you guys remember the first stint that NASCAR was in Milwaukee, you know where that strip is for the bottom of the racetrack, that asphalt strip.
Yep.
That's all they ran, and they didn't run much higher than that.
The grip
But
strip.
today, I mean, they were from the yellow line all the way up to about the fence. Um, and I thought because there were multiple lanes, I thought the race was pretty decent. It
and
wasn't
they
great,
had
but
multiple lanes the whole time. It wasn't
yeah,
just on a restart.
yeah. Especially after the tires fell off. I mean, you kind of saw them migrating toward the wall as the tires fell off. But it seemed like guys that were able to hold the middle to the top were making pretty decent times. So
I know it's a different tire compound, but I would think that's going to bode well for IndyCar next weekend at Milwaukee.
we'll have to see. I mean, Milwaukee's kind of been in the same boat where NASCAR was there the last time where they used the grip strip. So I don't know if because Milwaukee with IndyCar there, to my recollection from when I was watching races there, they just kind of stayed on the bottom. That was it. They might have had a second lane, but it depends on what with it being a different tire company, obviously with Firestone. I don't know. We'll have to see. A lot of unknowns there. But
Is there any
go ahead,
rain in the
AJ.
forecast?
I don't
Think
know. Let's
so.
ask our weather guy.
I don't
Ollie?
think so. As of yeah, Ali, that's good. I
I'm
as
asking
of
our weather guy here.
I'm gonna say no because I have not looked that far out,
How
so I
about
don't
you?
know.
How about you look that far out?
I
Because
got
you
it. I
always
got
do.
it. I got it. I got it.
Thank you.
Because you guys mentioned all those tire compounds and everything. It doesn't matter
So
if it rains.
it's a double header. I know that they're racing Saturday and Sunday. Now I don't know if they're racing Saturday night. Here-
They're starting at 6 o'clock or 6 o'clock Eastern on Saturday night. It's gonna be sunny and 80 degrees, and then Sunday will be 77 and
They
sunny.
got rain all day, Thursday and Friday.
Okay,
So
so they might
that
practice and
Goodyear,
qualifying is going to be a challenge.
that Goodyear tire compound that would be there is
Gonna
You
get
mean
washed off at
Firestone?
least. Well,
Yeah,
Goodyear from the previous week.
true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Will be washed off the track. But getting practice and qualifying, that'll be a challenge, I think, for those IndyCar guys.
we're about to get smacked with a storm.
I'm interested to see. Hopefully, it holds off here for a little bit, but I'm interested to see for Milwaukee next week for IndyCar what's going to be like because they never raced tonight. Never have. The races that they run there after the Indianapolis 500, the week after has always been on Sunday during the day. That 200 lap or 300 lap or whatever it was. So I'm curious to see how that will go. I think it'll go well. Milwaukee always seems to put on a pretty decent show. I do know that the state fairgrounds that runs the Milwaukee Mile, they are looking to repave here in the next couple of years. The last time that track was repaved was like mid 90s.
Oh wow.
So that pavement's around 30 years old.
Yep.
So and it's starting to come apart. I mean, you saw how they kind of repaved the middle of the front stretch today.
And apparently
So
NASCAR's not going back.
That's what I heard too. NASCAR's not going back, according to the state fair board there in Wisconsin.
They don't want NASCAR to come back.
I don't know if it's because of the repave. I'm not sure exactly. Lack of attendance. I'm not entirely sure.
That crowd did not look that healthy today for the truck race, especially for a playoff race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not Cup, so
I know.
but I mean, IRP basically had a sellout. So
Yeah. I agree.
but I think it's because you got diehard race fans in Indiana that like going to IRP and like going to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I will say though, one thing that's kind of that Joe told me today. Shout out to Joe Hutchings if you're watching. And I agree. Milwaukee is older than IMS by a handful of years. Not a lot of people know that. Milwaukee is the oldest oval in the United States. Why isn't all racing series racing at Milwaukee? Like IndyCar hadn't been there in over a decade. Now they're going back finally. NASCAR has been racing on and off there for a few decades, but
I don't ever
like,
remember Cup there.
no, Cup. I don't think Cup's ever been there.
It's always been Busch or trucks.
They might have been there in like the 60s or 70s. I could see that, but you would think. I would love to see. Now I know it's kind of a challenge there at Milwaukee Mile. Like if you guys were to look it up on a Google map right now, you will see that Milwaukee is in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yep.
The racetrack is. I would love to see a Cup race there eventually. Will it happen? I don't know.
And for what Joe was talking about earlier, they have to have engines off at a certain point. And Cup, at least Cup, you're looking at a 400 lap race, 400-mile race.
Yeah, 350, 400 lap race. Yeah, 400
That could
mile
go
race.
a while.
Well, I mean, that's why you would need to start it. It would be a Sunday afternoon race. They're a little more lenient with Friday and Saturday night because they do have late models that run there at night. They've done it before. That's why the Milwaukee race, the first one of the double headers at 6 o'clock, because it's kind of, as long as they're off by 10 or 11, I think is the ordinance. They'll be all right. And I think that's kind of where, I would love to see at some point, an Xfinity race there, truck race and Cup all in the same weekend. I'd love to see that from Milwaukee. Will it happen? Probably not, but I think that would be a track that would just be interesting to see a Cup race there, kind of like with Iowa. I just want to see NASCAR kind of get back to their roots a little bit, run some of these shorter ovals, these flatter tracks. I don't think it would put on a good show for the next gen as it currently stands.
No.
You guys have heard how I've said about the next gen for years. Get rid of it. Just run Xfinity with 900. That's your fix.
Yeah.
But it won't happen. So.
But
IndyCar today at Portland. Santino Ferrucci with the pole. That was kind of a shock for the weekend. Santino Ferrucci won the pole in the number 14 car for AJ Foyt. So it was good to see. I'm sure Rob was very excited.
As far as I know, he was very excited about that.
Yeah.
And then the race started.
And then the race started where because Santino doesn't start out front ever, got outbroke by Will Power. No,
and then Kyle Kirkwood forced Scott Dixon off, and then Scott Dixon got shunted off.
So we went back and looked at it because Joe was ready to rip Fittipaldi's head off for that
round. Oh, I could see that.
AJ was there.
It was scary. I almost had to call 9-1.
9-1. So the first thing, and this is what I told Joe, I said after looking at as we were looking at the replay again, I said that's on Kirkwood because he was the one that forced Dixon off the track. Mm-hmm. At that point, when Dixon's trying to get back on track and up to speed, you all saw the dirt and grass that was on his tires.
Yep,
he's needing to get that cleared off, and you I don't know, Mike, if you've driven the IndyCar much in the sim or same thing with you, AJ, but like. It always comes down to a split-second decision in an IndyCar. You either choose right or you choose death. There's no in between. And for Fittipaldi there, he thought he was making the right decision because he probably thought that Dixon was going to stay more left than he was, and they made contact.
Well, he had that curb there too.
And he hit the curb, and that sent him into Scott, and that sent Scott to the nether region, out of the race.
To the shadow run.
To the shadow run. Thank you. There we go. But it was one of those things where I can't necessarily blame Fittipaldi because you have to make that decision like that.
Yeah.
And I thought he made the right choice. I was kind of thinking Scott, being the veteran driver that he was going to choose more offline, stay to the left, let more cars go, and then he would just get that back later. Didn't happen that way though, but it is what it is.
Well,
I was surprised that they gave Fittipaldi a penalty for that.
That's exactly what I was going to go to because I thought the penalty should have been on Kirkwood.
Yeah, I thought if you wanted to give anybody a penalty, it should have been Kyle Kirkwood. Or as I was discussing with Joe, I said, I hate to say it, but it's a racing deal. Like, should Kirkwood have been sending it like that? Lap 1, turn 2? No. Okay, or turn 4, wherever they were on the racetrack at that time. No, Kirkwood should not have been sending it that hard. Should have Dixon stayed more to the left when he's going through that other chicane, that next corner, that next right-hander? Yes, he should have. Did he do that? No. And it's just one of those things where
You
it's
think he
like,
was still trying to catch the car?
that's another thing that Joe and I were discussing too. It could have been one of those things where maybe Scott was still trying to get the car back underneath him because he had just gotten out off to the bloody grass, as Dario Brinkin used to call it. It's just one of those things where how much control of the car did Dixon have at the time? So I kind of have to chalk it up to one of those racing deals. It's a shame that Fittipaldi got punt or that got the raw end of the deal there with the penalty, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Because he had Rossi right behind him, and Rossi would have ran him over. So,
Want to talk about a very interesting part of the race, Gary? There's a certain Frenchman that had no business
Grosjean
being on the racetrack.
Well, it's not that he had no business being on the racetrack, but
he kept going.
He did keep going.
I don't race a lot. I broadcast a lot, as people know that do all this stuff on the channel. If you spin out, you let everybody go before you decide to come back up on the racetrack. And he just straight comes up and cleans another driver right out.
Yeah. No, that was ridiculous. Yeah. I can't remember who he came up in front of. I think it was
a light blue car.
Was it McLaughlin?
Like a baby blue car.
I think it was McLaughlin.
It might have been McLaughlin.
But yeah, he spun out and then he goes right back into traffic. It goes right for the racing line like nobody's there. It's like, do you not have a spotter? Or do you not have do you have a lack of awareness? You entitled Formula One prick.
Maybe he thinks it's still Formula One with no spotters.
And then 2 turns later,
that's how I feel about that. I played a sound.
Me.
Mike didn't get to hear it because he's deafened in the Discord, but
yeah.
It was really one of those moments where I played this.
Yeah.
Real Man of Genius right there in that moment.
Yeah, I heard it that time.
For good old Grosjean there, but yeah, not a smart move. He really should have just turned off his computer and just gone to bed. That's what he should have done. Just shut down your windows and get out.
Oh no!
I really don't like Grosjean's attitude, to be quite frank. I think AJ was around for that earlier, where he said, at Detroit, we kept the 500. Oh, I'm out of the points. Why am I racing?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember
that. I don't like attitude from drivers like that. Even when it's in the sim and we're all league racing together, people are like, "Oh, I'm out of the points. Why am I here?" I get where you're coming from, but like, go kick some tail, win a race. Be a spoiler to everybody else. I don't know. Go race because you love it, because it's fun. I mean, but people don't race for fun anymore. They race for money.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother story for another time. Congrats to Will Power. I think this is his
My
third.
guy.
I think it's his third win of the season.
It is.
As I was talking with Joe earlier.
It was. It is his third one.
I think they've all come on road courses, so I think.
Yes, that is correct.
So they go to Milwaukee. I think he's won at Milwaukee in the past, if I'm not mistaken.
He said that on his post-race interview, and me being a Will Power fan, I totally blanked on that. I said, "Oh crap, he did win there."
I think he won there just after reunification, or he probably won in his kart days there.
Hold on, I'll tell you in a second.
In the Australian Gold car, that was a badass looking paint scheme back then.
I'll tell you in a second.
But yeah, I thought the IndyCar race at Portland was pretty solid. I'm looking forward to the doubleheader next week at Milwaukee. That'll be a good time. And then of course we've got Nashville wrapping up that season here in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I didn't realize how early the IndyCar season ends.
Yeah, they end pretty early.
They
used to kind of extend it to like the end of September or maybe the first week in October. But they don't do that anymore. They don't run many races anymore.
So they cut down their number of races.
They used to have like 20 some races on the schedule. Now they only do like 18.
Oh,
Personally, and this is what I've said for forever. Get rid of the doubleheaders at Iowa and at Milwaukee. If you want to do more races, do more ovals. Go to Loudon. Go back to Texas. Don't go back to Vegas because that proved to be bad. Go to Kentucky.
Do you want to know when the last time when Will Power won there?
Go to Chicagoland. 2008.
2014.
2014. IndyCar racer in 2014?
The last race that they ran there was 2015. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay. 2014. There you go. Go back to Milwaukee, which they're doing. Kansas. There's no place like home.
how's Homestead? Have they ever raced Homestead?
Homestead, they can go back to Homestead. Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't raced there since 2011.
2011, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I remember you guys saying Homestead used to be a good race.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be pretty solid. You go back to Japan, Motegi. Just saying, you want to
Surfers
go to
Paradise?
Roval
I
outside
thought
of
they
the
couldn't
country?
race on that road, that track anymore.
They couldn't for a while because of an earthquake. I don't know if it's still in disrepair or not, but
I want to say Surfers Paradise for like an exhibition.
make it an actual $1 million challenge instead of the $500,000 challenge.
They had thermal, which is my God,
Now
don't
it's a
get me
points
started.
race.
Yeah,
It's a
don't get me
points race
started with
next year.
thermal.
But I've been saying it for a while. IndyCar, you can expand to like a 24 race schedule. Don't give us an 8-week gap between race 1 and race 2
That's
with an all-star race thrown in the middle.
Yeah, that is dumb.
That needs to be fixed. You can go to some warmer weather climates. Hell, go to Phoenix.
like
I just
you guys know I'm a very much a casual IndyCar fan. I'll sit there and watch it, but if you give me a gap, but like that big of a gap between races, I'm just gonna forget about IndyCar.
right, and that's the thing with IndyCar in general. They've really lacked the marketing side when they do have a long break of broadcasting it that hey, we're back. Like, but see, here's the thing. They just assume that every race is like the Indianapolis 500 where it sells itself.
Mhm.
It ain't that way. Like motorsports fans forget. It's like with the NASCAR fans arguing about the damn start times. We could talk about start times, but I'm not going to. 1 o'clock. All networks. 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Plus the night
Friday
race,
races.
then 6 o'clock.
Yeah, or for your night races, 6 or 7. 6 or 7 o'clock. Yeah, it's not difficult, but they make it difficult. So here we are.
It's all.
And then for your West Coast
it's all
races, if you want
network.
to start at 1 o'clock, West Coast time, 4 o'clock in the East. Simple. 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
Garth Brooks is playing outside.
What was that look for?
As
Thunder.
as a Will Power fan, I was very very glad to see him bounce back after Gateway and that whole catastrophe that happened that we talked about last week. But 3 wins on the year for Will. That's very good. Bounce back season and a
I
half.
think that moved him up to second in points.
He's
so-
second in points, still 54 points back. So he still has an outside chance of the championship, but he needs Pelot to have a terrible weekend at Milwaukee. If that's basically his only hope.
Hey Chip, can you get a grid penalty for Alex Pelot?
And I heard something very interesting today on the race. Townsend Bells, I think it was Townsend or James said that Power still has 1 more year left on his contract, and they were talking about if he continues to do maybe 2-3 wins a season, sign him up for another 4 or 5 years.
I wouldn't sign him up for that long. I think with how his wife was these last couple of years, I think if he does continue,
I give it 2 or 3.
yeah, I was gonna say Roger might sign him to a deal where it's like I'll give you another year or 2, but you kind of have this affiliation with AJ Foyt and 2 really young guys that might want to drive for your team one day. Just saying, David Malukas, Santino Ferrucci might want to get them an actual Penske car.
My thing is
Throwing it out there, get Newgarden and Will Power out of there.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but Will is still he's still at the top of his game, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah, I mean, he is at the top of this game. I would like to see how I think Roger's gonna kind of take it as like, let's see how next year goes. And if you're still at this level where you're right there competing for a championship, let's sign you to another year or two.
If he
I
somehow,
think,
if I was gonna say real quick, if he somehow wins the title this year, that changes the conversation.
yeah. How old is Willpower? 40?
40,
48?
40,
A big
44,
gap, Derek.
45?
40, 48.
Hold on.
50? I mean, is he 70? I mean, how old is
He's 43. So I was right about,
Okay.
I said 44.
So, and I like okay, so this is what Junior has said about drivers in their prime. And I have to agree with him on this one. Drivers in their prime is usually anywhere from 35 to about 43. After that, depending on the driver, either they take a nosedive in performance or they start to fall off a bit. I think Will probably retire between the ages of 45 to 48.
I agree with you
Somewhere in
there.
there.
I don't think
he's gonna be racing into his 50s.
No.
If he does race into his 50s, it's not gonna be in an IndyCar. It's gonna be an IMSA. That's my take on that. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. I love Willpower. I used to not like him, but the older I've gotten, I think the more I can relate with him. So I'm starting to like and respect Willpower more. I just wish he wasn't driving for a cheater. So
Shots fired.
I don't care. I'll still support the Speedway. But yeah, so that's really all I had today for this podcast. AJ, how long have we been live now? Over an hour?
Hour 17.
Oh, hey, longer show today for y'all. Final thoughts, Mike. AJ, what do y'all got?
I'll let AJ go first.
right.
I am very excited for NASCAR going to Darlington to close out their regulars. Are we gonna see somebody sneak their way in? It's gonna have to be with a win. I don't think they can do what a 30-point swing in one race.
No, they could. It's doable if the guy has a bad day. I mean, that was kind of because I think it's Chastain that's above the cut line, right? Or is it Buescher?
It's Chastain, I think. No, Chastain. Is it Chastain?
Chastain's plus 21, isn't he?
Hold on. Let me look.
Look at the standings for me.
Yep. Give me a second.
But I always like watching Darlington. It's such a difficult track.
It's Buescher. Yeah, Buescher's 21 points above the cut line. Bubba Wallace is 21 back, and Chastain's 27.
So we're going to a track.
Chance.
We're going to a track where Buescher finished second at in the spring. Do I need to say more?
It's gonna be tough. It's
gonna be a tall task for Bubba.
I think it's gonna be a good route. I think it's gonna be a good race. The Southern 500 is very tough. I mean, even Jimmy said that last night. The Southern 500 is always a tough one. It's always a long night.
Yep.
But I think I'm gonna die on this hill. Screw it. I think it's gonna be Chris Buescher that wins this week. Guarantee, as Charles Barkley would say. Okay. All right.
Do we need the guarantee button though?
There's your button. Okay. I don't have a guarantee button, but if I had one, I'd press it. Chris Buescher. That's my guy. I think that's who's gonna win the race, and he's already 21 up, but he'll solidify his spot in the playoffs. I really don't see. I mean, I'd like to see Bubba have a good day, but I just don't see that it's going to be a winning day for him. Chris Buescher's still really pissed off about Kansas from a few months ago. Just saying.
He's probably pissed off from Darlington too.
Yeah, I mean, back-to-back second place finishes where it's not pretty. I think that team's really hungry to get in the victory lane.
Chris Buescher, he has had a very good season to only be 16 points.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's probably higher in the regular season standings, but playoff wise, yeah, he had a couple of rough stretches there a little bit too in the summer. It was a good spring. It was an okay summer. But I think they're starting to pick their performance back up because if you look at Keselowski the last few weeks, they've been running good. And typically it's a good sign when that 6 car is running good, that 17 car is going to be running really good too. Those two teams seem to feed off each other. That's why I'm hoping that if Roush gets a third charter, maybe Harrison Burton could go there.
That'd be wild. It'd keep him in a Ford camp.
Keep him in a Ford. And that would be getting into a good car because look at what Joey Hand did with that car at the Chicago Street Race. That car finished like 3rd or 4th, finished in top 5. And David Reagan ran pretty good in the Daytona 500 in that car. I think he ran as high as in the top 10. And David Reagan hasn't set foot in a Cup car since 22. So, but I digress. I'm looking forward to Darlington. Mike, what do you say?
I'm looking forward to Darlington as well. I think the Xfinity race on Saturday and the Cup race on Sunday will be very good. I mean, the next gen car at Darlington does provide really good racing, which is a great thing. So
Maybe
I'm looking
Joey Logano will punch somebody out of the way.
Yeah, right. Or maybe Ross Chastain will just clear himself again and into somebody in the outside wall. So, but yeah, I think overall it's gonna be a great weekend. Darlington always performs. Darlington's always a great racetrack. IndyCar will be great at Milwaukee, especially being the last 2 races before the championship. That's going to be another banger, as Seamus would say. But I'm looking forward to the weekend. Labor Day weekend is always a great weekend for racing in general and sports in general. So I'm looking forward to it.
And we got college football.
Yes, we do. Labor Day weekend.
We won't talk about that yet.
Is that going to be another podcast you do?
That'll be a different podcast.
That would be Peyton's podcast.
That'll be Peyton's podcast. He's really into the football stuff. I am too, but I like talking racing with y'all. We could talk all sports maybe eventually, but in the meantime,
but it'll be a good weekend. It will be a very good weekend, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's it for us today. Thanks again, AJ, All-Star 15 TV, for letting us host here. This is the Off and Turn 1 podcast. I'm Gary. That's Mike. That's AJ. So long for now. And Scott, stop being stupid in the chat.
Yeah, Scott.